Hi, hello and welcome back to Bioenergetics. My name's Devraj and today I want to look at success, and I also want to look at Reiki and characterology. Those of you familiar with characterology know that there are five basic types. And in the early days of characterology, what you would do is locate with your client, the first type that they were really running and maybe a secondary one they were really running. But these days, what I find, to be honest, is that everyone is running all of these patterns. Essentially, they're basically survival strategies that we learned as a kid to cope with certain aspects of our childhood. And what's interesting about them when you start to look at them through the lens of success, is that two of these five really hinder the personal ability to be successful in life, especially in the field of business or work or entrepreneurship or generally getting your stuff together and out there. And I say this because, of course, success is not just about, material wealth and, how great a business you've got running. That's an aspect of it, but you might, want to be looking at success in relationships, in love relationships, in friendships, this kind of thing. And we're looking today a little bit more at the business side and of the success out in the world of material gains. So what I'm going to do now is just go through these five different survival strategies or character types, originally created by Wilhelm Reich, and look how they kind of affect material success out in the world. The first pattern that comes online is called the dreamer pattern, and it's the basic ability to leave the body and come up into a purely kind of thinking, or what's sometimes called ideational world. And there's some evidence that this happens actually in the womb for some people, that the capacity to kind of leave the physical connection with the body and just to start existing in a kind of dreamy world up in the mind actually can start in the womb, maybe even in the first or second trimester. And this pattern actually does not massively seem to affect material success in the world. If someone's very mindy, it's not necessarily, it can be a problem in relationships and love and sexuality and things, but it's not necessarily a problem in the business world or when you want to go out there and make something of yourself in the world. The second characteristic that comes online happens in the first year of life, and that is the oral characteristic, and it happens when there's an inadequate felt bond with the mother. Basically, either the mother's not there, she's not necessarily hostile or something like that, but she may be a bit absent, not really giving the level of attention and care, nourishment, need that the child expected, from the DNA level. And when this bond is broken, this does tend to affect someone's level of success in the world, because it creates this oral complex where it's quite difficult. If this program is running strongly in the interior of your psyche, it's quite difficult to hold energy. You tend to be on some level fixated with merging, trying to, there's an inner neediness inside which may be rejected at an ego level, but it's still running. And these people tend to keep themselves quite open in a certain way. But this is not useful when it comes to really getting a project together and running out into the world and being successful at work, because you need to hold your energy in and, channel and direct it in an intelligent way that serves your purpose. So the oral characteristic is definitely a problem. And the way you start to correct it is by creating stronger boundaries for yourself in life around what you do. This is extremely valid, particularly for the variant of the oral character, which is called the compensating oral. The compensating oral is someone who is giving and giving and giving because that's their way of creating a connection. They don't want to feel needy, so they make themselves busy giving all the time. And it's very hard for someone like this to really be successful in the long term. They tend to get swamped and their energy collapses. And generally with orals anyway, this tendency towards energetic collapse is quite strong. The third of these characteristics, which comes online, and by online I mean the age at which it can happen, and happening around 1.5 to 2.5 years old, is the Endura character type. The Endura happens when your parents or other caregivers overly squash you just as your ego starts to develop. The ego develops through the word no, basically. I was walking down the street today and just coming back from my sea swimming, and there's a little kid in a pram about 2 years old, and it's just screaming, nah! And the mum's actually being, she's being firm. It's enough now, but she's not being over the top. And when the parents, that's how we forge an ego. That's how we create inner space, by pushing a boundary out. Before then our parents are telling us what to do, and we're just going along with it. Then suddenly we have access to this concept of no, and we're like pushing out. And for some parents, some don't give enough boundary, which creates a different kind of personality type. Some are good with it, and give boundaries, but they're not over strong with it. And some are overbearing. They seek to completely control and crush the child at this age, and so they don't allow the child to have any free will or any sense of free will at this age, around 2 years old. And this child will become an endurer. They will have the endurer personality type, and this also is a huge impediment to being successful in the world, because the endurer will basically survive life. They can be very grounded endurers. They send everything down. They send their energy down. They're very blocked at the throat usually. They have a lot of anger inside, but they very rarely experience it, and they can't easily express. And they also tend to, because they're on a survival trip, it's hard for them to really reach out and take risks in life. They tend to be the strong, dependable one there in the background. They can be useful in team membership, but it is hard for them to be successful because they lack their own individuality, basically, and their life is just a survival trip. They also have a tendency to hold themselves hostage in a strange kind of way, as a form of payback gesture to the parents who have crushed them, and so they will rarely seek to be really materially successful, basically. So those are the two personality types that will really restrict your ability to be successful: the endurer and the oral. And these are the two you need to correct. If you want to be successful, or maybe you are successful, but you see you're still holding yourself back, and there's another echelon that you can move up to, and you're not going there. Look at the oral, look at the endurer side, because these are the parts of you that may be holding you back. Just to be complete, let's look at the other two, and they come online. It's not exactly clear the order, but the rigid personality, is someone who kind of plays by the rules and tries to win. They're like, if they're a guy, maybe they're a bit the alpha male. They just try and they kind of almost accept an archetypal kind of personality that's given to them by the media or somewhere else, and try to live that role. They don't have high self-esteem deep inside, but they try to go for material success, and they will try and be successful. So they're trying to be the alpha male or the alpha female, and they're trying to move up the great league table that they're very busy with inside their mind. Now these guys have egoic strength. When the rigid is very strong, but particularly the earlier characteristics are not so strong, then they have egoic strength. They can move out into the world and be successful. So having a rigid type, is not great, and it's not going to give you an ideal, wonderful life. But in terms of material success, yes, it could be very useful. And finally, the aggressive type, and the aggressive type is created really, sometimes it's it doesn't have such a clear kind of period of childhood that it emerges from, but often it's kids where there's been a sense internally that they've really been let down by the parents, that the parents were busy with their own trip, or just using them in some way, or something like this. And what the aggressive character does is channel energy up the body to the front, basically, to have this powerful, commanding presence that can, take control of situations. They're highly charismatic, they're very outgoing, they tend to be very inspiring kind of teachers. They struggle with friendships and close connection, but out in the world, they're fantastic. So these guys, are basically successful. They're basically successful in life, usually, unless they're running other patterns in the background, or they're just highly unstable, which can also happen to the aggressive character. They can have quite strong tendencies towards taking risks. They might be heavily involved in drug use, particularly cocaine. They might get into crime. They'd be much more likely to get into crime than other personality types. Okay, so I hope you found this to be a useful little chat on the subject of success and characterology. Do remember, I have a bit of conscience, that having some of these personality types like the aggressive or the rigid can help you be successful, but also, they are an impediment to life. And if you can clear them, you can still be successful. It's not that you have to become aggressive or rigid to be successful. If you're interested in this topic of success and bodywork and characterology, then I'm writing a book at the moment, part 2 of my trilogy on bioenergetics, and that will be out in the late spring, early summer. So look out for that. It's called Bioenergetics Part 2, Training the Body and Mind for Success. Okay, cool. Feel free to check out the rest of my work and like and subscribe and all that stuff. And I'll see you back again soon for another chat or another bioenergetic workout. Okay, keep going for it. You can do it.